Water Guy Hour. And now here's your host, Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy.
Welcome back for another episode of the Water Guy Show. This is Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy, right here with the Connecticut Richmond team over in Highland Springs, over by the airport. And we do everything related to water, except for the water that leaves your house. We don't mess with that because that's nasty. Mm-hmm. But all the water coming in, we're going to talk about today. When I say we, I mean
Ethan
and
the
me,
audio guy.
So we got two folks in here. We talk about water. We try to keep it real and informative and educational, and hopefully build up a little library of cool things that can help people all over the country, which we're seeing now. Yeah. Because these radio episodes are not only just limited to the radio, but we actually put them in our podcast library. And that library is supposed to be on all platforms. I'm being told there have been some technical issues with the Apple podcast. But Spotify is definitely up and running, and the Amazon one, I believe, is also fully up, which I didn't even really think about Amazon.
I didn't think Amazon had a podcast platform.
Yeah, well, apparently they do, and we're on it. So
hey,
check that out if you're Amazon fans.
All stones will be covered. How was your holiday?
Oh yeah, so yeah, Happy New Year to everybody listening.
Yes.
Yep, my holiday was not really a holiday. I was working as coverage because we don't leave any customer stranded, no matter what day it is.
Of course not. So
yeah, normally things are actually pretty quiet on the weekends, mm-hmm. But this weekend, for some reason, was just horrifically bad. We had everything from a buddy actually had a water heater start leaking.
Oh.
Yeah, that was when was that? That was on Saturday. That was Saturday the 30th, I believe it was, because Sunday was the 31st. And he's going to kill me for mentioning this on the radio, but he found out that his water heater was leaking because it's in the same room as his laundry machine, which is down in the basement, the finished basement.
Okay.
So at 11 o'clock, he goes down to change the clothes from the washing machine. 11 o'clock p.m.
Right.
Goes down there, moves the clothes into the dryer from the washing machine, and notices that the rug is all wet.
Mm.
And his immediate reaction was to put the clothes in the dryer and go to bed. So,
I mean, look, at 11 p.m. I get it.
Yeah, well, he figured I'll deal with it in the morning.
Right.
Well, yeah, it gets even funnier. So, and people listening, don't ever do this. This is part of our water education. It's funny. We're going to use a story at my buddy's expense. So he gets up, and he was working Saturday because I was actually meeting him over at his place of business for an unrelated matter, and that's how I found out about all this. But that morning he gets up, goes down there. Now there's water on the floor. He can see there's just water.
Like there's still water.
Oh, yeah.
Chilling.
It's not miracling itself away. So it's beyond just the rug, and now it's kind of into the carpet. And, yeah.
Oh.
So most folks that have that happen are probably going to be like, oh, my gosh, there's water coming out somewhere. I need to figure out where it's coming from.
Right.
So he goes to work. Without doing anything.
This man has his priorities straight.
Yeah, work. He was driven to get to work. So I see him at work, and he's telling my wife this story, and I'm in the background listening, going, "So what was it? How'd you fix it?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't have time to fix it. I'll just figure it out tonight." I'm like, "So you turned your water off, didn't you?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You've known about this for 12 hours at this point, and there's still nothing being done to stop water from just pouring out in your basement?"
Right, and additionally, if 8 hours, like 8 to 12-ish hours, was enough to go from a damp rug to a very small kiddie pool in your basement, imagine what another 8 hours is going to do.
Yeah. Well, lucky for him, he was on county water, city water.
Okay.
And I happened to have the one of the vans with me at that point. And so I was like, I'm going to, I know where you live. This is not good. You have got to get this under control. And if you can't leave, I'm going to go over there and at least turn your water off at the street, at the meter, because I have the tool to do that. So that's what I did. I turned it off at the meter, and I was like, then when you actually find it a priority to get home and check this out further, find out where it was coming from and call me, and we can try to get this thing fixed. Because now it's Saturday of a holiday week,
Right.
a weekend. So no plumbers are going to be cheap or available.
Right.
So he ends up calling me, went home for lunch. Took him that long. Calls me up and he's like, yeah, my water heater, that's the cause of all of this. I see water just kind of oozing out of it all around. So I'm like, okay. Well, he tells me what kind of water heater he's got. And so I'm like, yeah, I've actually got that one stocked in our warehouse here because we do water heaters as well as water treatment.
And duct cleaning as well.
And duct cleaning, yeah, which we'll talk about at the end of this thing. Actually, we talked about that before, but yeah, we're into clean water and clean air.
Love it.
But even warm water. So, yes, we do water heater repairs, replacements. And I told him, I said, look, this thing was put in back in 2011. It was like 12 years old, something like that.
Right.
So I'm like, it's a little, it was a little inexpensive one. And this is actually pretty cool. So most people, when you get a water heater, and I won't name the brands because I don't want somebody to send me hate mail, but most of the water heaters that are out there are rated in terms of their gallons, obviously, but they're also rated in terms of how long the warranty is. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, hey, I've got one in the warehouse. It's a 9-year unit. And he's like, what does that mean? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to just back the train up so I can explain how this works.
Right.
So most water heaters have either a 5 or a 6-year warranty. That's like their basic warranty. Now, remember, this one's been in for 11, 12 years.
Right.
So he's way, way beyond what that warranty originally covered. Mm. But the interesting thing is that we use, I'll just say it. We use the Rheem brand.
Okay.
And the reason that I use those is because I actually, back in my prior career, I got a chance to meet a lot of the folks with the manufacturing side of Rheem, and a lot of other cool stuff. But I learned that those guys, they have usually, like, let's say a Rheem water heater is a 6-year unit, and the other brands usually are 5-year units.
Right.
And then if you want a longer warranty, you can get like on the other brands, you can get an 8 or a 10-year warranty. And it costs more, obviously. Well, the Rheem brand actually has 9 and 12 years. But it's not just a piece of paper. You're not just paying more.
Right.
The Rheem is actually made differently. Each one of them is different. It's a whole different thing. You get a better water heater as you move up the threshold of how long it's going to have a warranty for. And the other ones, most of them, have a 5-year water heater and a piece of paper. It's an extended warranty.
Okay.
So it's not a better water heater. It's just more peace of mind. So me, personally, if I'm going to pay more, I don't want to just get a piece of paper.
Right.
I want to get something that's better. And so that's kind of why we actually have we call them the mid-grade ones, which are amazingly good quality. But anyway, back to this story. His was way out of warranty, and I happen to have one in the warehouse. And let's just say I was over there putting this thing in until about 11 o'clock on Saturday night, which he definitely appreciated, I got to say.
Of course.
As good friends would. But he had no idea how a water heater goes in, so he's literally like watching every step of the process in amazement. So it turned out like flawless, even though I ended up doing it to help a friend out. But anyway, that was my Saturday. And then, after driving, I went to Williamsburg that day. I went all the way down to Sussex that day, which is way the heck nowhere near Williamsburg.
It's out there.
Yeah. It was. I had to come all the way back in and all the way around, and then I had to get. Then Sunday rolled around. This was New Year's Eve day.
Mm-hmm.
I figured, this is gonna be a nice, relaxing day. I had Chaos Day yesterday. No, 7:20 in the morning. So on Sunday, I get a phone call, and somebody has not enough water pressure. And, of course, they were out there near Sussex. Again, I was like, doggone it, I was just there yesterday. So I had to go all the way out there to go ahead and take care of another issue. It was just a dirty filter of all things.
Right.
Nothing that really couldn't have waited until normal, work day.
Right.
But, when the customer feels it's an emergency, then it's an emergency to me too. So that was my New Year's Eve. I ended up getting back to the house at 8 o'clock, and I think I was snoozing by 10:30. So, how was yours?
Mine was significantly less hectic than yours. Very, very lax weekend. We went up to the mountains and spent New Year's Eve up there. So,
well, that sounds much more relaxing than mine. So
I give you props for your work ethic on that though, because that's insane.
Yeah, that was my work ethic last year. So we're in a new year, and of course it's still kicking like it does normally.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we're in a new year. We got some new stuff. I've got a new guy. He's going to be making this his career, and I'm actually pretty excited about his potential.
Awesome.
He's significantly younger than I am, and way smarter on the all the IT type stuff that's out right now, and he's a good videographer. There was you hear a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I take pictures and do videos and stuff like that."
Right.
And he showed me one of them, and I'm like, I know, I've seen this before. So I'll just throw it out there. There's this guy on TikTok and YouTube called the Doggy Daddy. You might have even seen it.
I'm sure I have.
It's a guy. He looks a little odd. He's tall, and I think he's got like curly hair, and usually has sunglasses on. And he goes up to the most nasty, mean dogs without any fear at all, and in literally seconds, they're subdued and sitting at his feet, and you're going, is this for real? But yeah, so I saw that, and I was like, you did the video for this guy? And he's like, yeah, it was just one. He flew in for some special dog situation, and he didn't have a videographer, so he looked him up, and that's how he got to shoot and do a video for the Doggy Daddy.
Wow.
But yeah, so I got a maybe kind of a star on the team here. Can't wait to see what he can do. He's already done a cool montage of our duck cleaning and a lot of other things. So
nice.
Everybody listening, we have a YouTube channel, Connecticut Richmond. You can find us on there, and we're going to be putting this stuff up there. It takes several weeks from raw footage to through final edits and making sure it looks pretty good. But we've got a couple of them actually. We just released this week, so some cool new content out there, and we're going to focus on even more of the library online there that folks can go and get a lot of education on. What I have this water problem, or I want to learn more about this particular thing that's going on with my plumbing, or I have stomach problems. What do you think? There's all sorts of bizarre stuff that we're going to be digging into, and since he's going to hopefully be a permanent member of the team here, looks like we will have constant stuff going on all year. So
awesome.
I'm pretty excited about that. So we for folks that are just tuning in, we're going to modify our radio schedule a little bit.
Yes, we are.
Folks that have tuned in weekly, we are still going to be on the radio. We're actually going to do it on the first and third Saturdays of the month.
So bi-weekly now.
So bi-weekly.
Okay.
Yep. So that's going to be the new schedule. So set your alarms for the first and third Saturdays of the month to tune into Boomtown.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can catch us on the podcast if you're like me and you can't get the reception perfectly, or somebody keeps trying to call you while you're in the middle of trying to listen. Yeah. That's the new schedule, and we do, of course, specialize in all water related things, everything from brownish, cloudy, stinky, weird feeling water. Drinking water is one of those things that we are absolutely professionals and experts in, if I do say so myself, because we try to crush the competition on anything that they even try to propose out there, which is actually kind of funny, because one of the real stories that I was going to talk about here, I call this one the brightest whites. So it's a customer that we had, and he moved into this house, had a little bit of issues, actually more than a little bit of issues with odor in his water.
Mm-hmm.
So of course he just did a little bit of research and listened around and reached out to a water treatment company, and they got back to him and they put a system in after going out there and checking it all out. And I'm going to save the next part of the story for after our break, because it's
Cliffhanger?
Yes.
We're doing a cliffhanger?
I'm getting better. I'm actually doing
Okay.
cliffhangers now.
Awesome.
So, yes, stick around to find out what happened on the brightest whites story. And this is the Water Guy Show on Boomtown. This is Paul and Ethan, and you could reach us at 877-60-WATER at the office, or you could go online at ConnecticutRichmond.com and check us out there. No pressure. You can pull all the information and education that you need off of the site, and any of my team would love to hear from you and help you out. But we'll catch you back after the break. All right, welcome back to the second section of the Water Guy Show. This is Paul.
And this is Ethan.
And we are talking about all things water. And before the break, we were talking about the story that I like to call the brightest whites, because we had a customer that called another company first, and they came out, checked it out, and they came up with their solution.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy was on a well. Customer was on a well, and they put this equipment in, and the way we found out about this is our phone rang a couple weeks after he had been installed by the other company, and he said he was let's just say he was mad.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get customers that are really short on the phone. They short to the point. He was short to the point and angry. So we could tell he was fired up, and he wasn't rude, but he was absolutely all business.
Yeah.
And just cut right through all the small talk and everything and said, I don't care about any of that. I just want this fixed. So we sent somebody out there to investigate, because the system was not taking care of the odor, the smell. He's like, they put this stuff in. My water smells. It's terrible. So my specialist goes over there and kind of sees what this competitor had put in. And it's what we call a bleach injection system. And yes, that's basically what it is. You put bleach like you would put in your laundry machine into this big container. And this thing, when you use water, it pumps a bleach mixed with water, directly into your water, and then it goes into in their situation, it went right from there into the house. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So his house smelled, but it didn't smell like rotten eggs or anything that we would normally run into. It smelled like bleach, like you were in a YMCA swimming pool area.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Oh.
So my specialist is in there, and he's just mortified because this is absolutely not what you are supposed to be doing.
Right.
This is beyond handy homeowner. I'm gonna hook something up because I saw it on YouTube, and put bleach in my water. And bleach has its purposes. Obviously, they don't use bleach, but they use chlorine when they're treating the water for municipal purposes because it chemically disinfects and keeps that water, sterilized, so to speak, until it gets to all the houses that it's going to. Well, the difference between that and what they had done here is that when you're doing that on a grand scale, you're regulated and monitored by the EPA, and they have these primary standards that you have to abide by. Basically, you can't put beyond a certain level of chlorine in the water because it's a health hazard.
Right.
And the EPA puts 4 parts per million, which, folks, listen, is just a number. Just remember 4. 4 is the max. So my specialist is in there, and he's like, I have no idea what they were thinking when they put this in here. Mm-hmm. But we try to be respectful of somebody else that's supposedly reputable.
Right.
So we like to let the data speak for itself. So he starts testing. Let's just say there is not a testing device out there that can measure as high as what his chlorine level was. We had to do some things called dilutions to be able to get it down to where we could even come close to guessing what the level was. And the best guess that we got was 18. It was way over 18, but we actually, the only number we could pull up was 18. So this guy, 4 is the max. He was 4.5 times over the maximum on total chlorine in his house 24/7. And my specialist, because he calls me on the phone. He actually put me on speakerphone there and put me on the spot, and I really didn't even realize that I was on speakerphone.
Right.
And normally I'm just pretty calm, cool, and collected, but he told me, he's like, yeah, best I can get is 18 ppm on this. I'm like, what? 18? It's going to probably melt things at levels like that.
Right.
And so that was how they decided to fix the odor, by basically turning his house into a gigantic swimming pool that was way overdosed. And the good part of that story was that his whites were very white when he did laundry. So that's why I call that one the brightest whites.
Oh.
So needless to say, that story, once it was explained to him that what they had done and what the numbers were telling us, he said, what would you guys do? So we were like, well, you've already got all this brand new equipment. And he said, I don't care. You tell me what I need. So we told him what he needed. And he ends up calling the company that put it in and said, you get this stuff out of the house now, and I want a full refund. And I don't know. I'm assuming they gave him the full refund because the liability of exposing somebody to poison levels like that, I'm sure they probably realized that, oh my gosh, this is not good. We probably just need to, hopefully this guy's going to accept taking his money back, and we pulled the stuff out of there. But we ended up putting our own stuff in, and he has been overjoyed ever since, and he has pure drinking water. So
very nice.
That was a good ending on that story. Yeah, he's got bright white clothes, and his house got completely sanitized. But now that we're in there, he has the proper treatment. And actually, one of the things that we use pretty frequently is a unit called the sulfur guard, because when folks have smell in their water, usually that means rotten egg smell. And rotten egg smell can come from, it's kind of a pain in the neck to deal with, because it's not simple. It's not like hardness, where, oh, you got hardness in your water, you need a softener. That's it. When you have odor in your water, it can come from so many different places. So if folks listening have any odors, one of the first things that we like to to do is to make sure that the smell is actually coming from the water. Because sometimes a lot of times, I'll get folks that'll say, hey, my master bathroom, when I brush my teeth, it smells like rotten eggs. And what we'll find is that usually when you're brushing your teeth, you bend over to, spit the stuff back into the sink. And you're not smelling the water. You're actually smelling as the water is disrupting down in the drain. So you're getting kind of like some funky drain smell coming up, and it makes you think it's coming from your water.
So does that mean the P-trap isn't working correctly? Or?
No, the P-trap is fine, but the water that's sitting in the P-trap, it just sits there, and it's all funky. I mean, it's full of spit and just nasty. So sometimes it can grow bacteria and have a pretty bad smell just because it's part of your sewer system. It's funky. So if anybody has smell when you're brushing your teeth, what I like to do to try to isolate that is if you can get a little short Tupperware or a bucket or something directly underneath the faucet and open the faucet up into this so it's not going down in the drain, and then you just kind of stick your face down in there and you smell the water as it's going into the Tupperware or the little container. That'll tell you, do you have water that smells, or do you have something else like a drain? Sometimes it's that overflow vent that's in the front of the sinks most of the time that can kind of, as the water goes in, it tends to push funky gases up and through that, and that can kind of throw you. But if the water's not actually going into the drain, you can identify the true cause of it, which is super important because that's the tricky part. Like if somebody has city water, it's very, very rare that it comes in with hydrogen sulfide, and we've seen it, but there are certain situations that would make that happen. But usually we get calls because it's a well. But I'll back up. If anybody has hot water that smells, and it's just the hot, not the cold, it's probably the anode rod. And this is, since I'm still rehashing some of the water heater story, I was actually talking with that water heater that we replaced. I was telling him, I said, look, on this new water heater, this old one failed because the water eventually eats through the metal of the water heater. That's what's in there to keep it in there. So they put this thing called an anode rod in almost every tank-style water heater. If you're listening to this and you have a tankless, you don't have an anode rod. So this doesn't apply to you. There's also folks that may have fiberglass water heaters. There's one out there known as the Marathon series. It's fiberglass, so it doesn't have metal, so it doesn't need an anode rod.
Interesting.
And stainless steel water heaters, they're rare, but they do exist. We actually sold those for a while, but they don't have an anode rod because stainless steel is impervious to the water getting through it. But a regular tank style water heater has this anode rod, sometimes more than one, and this freaks even plumbers out because most plumbers don't even know this. But usually there's like that plastic envelope that has your instructions and your manual and everything that's still stuck to the side of the water heater. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So nobody ever opens that up, especially guys, because we don't read directions or manuals until we absolutely need to.
We can do it ourselves.
That's exactly right. So in there, if you were to do some reading, and usually it's not like on page 2, it's back on like page 18 of the manual, so nobody ever gets to it. All they care about is, how do I set the temperature? And that's it. You're done. Don't ever open the manual again until the water heater blows up. But in there, and I challenge anybody listening here, it's a cool fun fact. Stump the other person that's in your house if you have one, and just say, hey, when was the last time you inspected the anode rod? And they're going to give you this look like, what in the world did you just say to me?
What the heck is an anode rod?
That's it. Yep. So there's a thing called an anode rod. And the best way I could describe it is it's a rod. It's basically like this long rod of metal that's been smashed onto a wire. So think of it like when it's all done, it looks like a big solid rod, and it's about as long as your arm, and it's about as big around as your thumb. So it's just this rod that goes down into the water heater, and it's usually made out of magnesium and zinc. And the purpose of it is to give the water something to attack so that it doesn't attack the metal of the water heater. So, now you see where I'm going with this. So the manual, if you read the manual, it will actually say that you need to remove and inspect your anode rod annually in almost every single manual. It's hard to find, but it's in there. Mm-hmm. And this is where it gets really fun because nobody has ever seen that. Nobody has ever done that. Few people even flush their water heaters, which that's the easiest thing in the world to do.
And I do know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're one of the rare ones, but the anode rod. So first you have to know about this, and then you actually have to find the anode rod. Sometimes this involves going through the manual. A lot of times the location is marked, but usually it's on the top of the water heater, and there are these, the water heater has this metal shell around it to basically keep all the insulation in there. And on the top, you'll see these plastic little plugs that basically they shove in the holes of the plastic skin. So the purpose of these plugs is because when they finish building the water heater, great stuff, that foam that you spray in gaps and cracks and it fills up and it hardens.
Yeah.
That's what they actually insulate these water heaters with. So they have this water heater tank, and then they put it in this shell, and then they shove all this foam in there, and the foam expands and fills the entire gap between the tank and the skin. Well, and then they shove these plugs in there where they, of course, put the stuff in. So the anode rod is on the tank, but at this point, now it's buried underneath all this foam. And if you've ever played around with this great stuff, tried to get this stuff off after it hardens, it is some tough stuff.
Yeah. So
you got to usually we use a flathead screwdriver. First, you got to pry the plug off of that thing so you can and you got to find the right one. Some of them actually have the words anode right into the plastic. So you at least have the right plug. But you got to pop the plug off, and then you got to use a screwdriver or something small, and basically just sit in there and carve out this stuff and use a vacuum, like a shop vac, because you're going to get these big chunks of it that'll plug up a normal vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
And you carve this thing out till you get all the way down to the tank, and usually it's down in there 4 inches, something like that, 3 or 4 inches. And when you finally get to this, it looks like a bolt, like the head of a bolt on the tank. Mm-hmm. Then you go ahead and you have to go to the hardware store or rent, if you don't already have this special impact gun, because when they put them on, they put Loctite on them. So you are not getting that thing off without an impact gun that's capable of torque that you would find at most truck body shops or truck repair places.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we've got this stuff. I think every single one of our vehicles has this special impact gun on it just for this reason, because we pull these things out, and instead of you having to go in there every year and looking at it again, we actually are also dealers of a electric anode rod. So it's a cool thing. You pull the old one out of there, and you put this new one in, and it gets plugged into a receptacle somewhere, a power outlet, and it's got a 20-year warranty. So you can move it. If you change your water heater out at some point down the road for another reason, you can actually move it onto another water heater.
I was about to say, yeah, that outlives the
water heater.
The water heater.
And some of these water heaters, I've heard of folks getting 20 years out of them.
Wow.
So, it's a pretty good deal. And after years and years of playing around with other treatments and taking them out and cutting them off, or taking them out and replacing them with an aluminum anode rod, you still have to inspect that every single year.
Right.
And even if you find some handyman that's going to go in there for $100 and pull your anode rod out once a year, over 10 years, that's $1,000.
Yeah.
So it's actually a cost savings. But that was pretty cool. little story I wanted to add in.
Nice.
Looks like we're coming up to our second break again.
We sure are.
So don't go anywhere. We've got our best story after the break on the Water Guy Show here. And make sure you got your pen and paper, and or you want to punch it into your phone. But 877-60-WATER is our phone number. And Connecticut Richmond is the website, as well as our YouTube channel. And Water Guy Podcast, if you want to catch up on past episodes. Don't go away. We're coming back. All right, we are still here and going in the home stretch of our Water Guy Show. And thank you for coming back after the break. We had wrapped up a couple of stories in the beginning one, a lot of water heater stuff. But that last, the Brightest Whites story, that was one that's going to go down in the record books. And let's just say that once the team from Connecticut Richmond got to him, he didn't have to call again. So we've got story number 2 here. This is a quick one.
Awesome.
So I call this one the real McCoy. You know what that means. You want the genuine, you want the real deal, right?
Right.
Okay. So this story is about a customer that thought he had found the real McCoy. He thought he got the good stuff.
Right.
And warranty is one of those things that you gotta remember. A lot of different things go into a warranty. The warranty isn't any good if the person or the company that's offering it is gone, out of business. You can have a lifetime warranty, and that may feel good today, but if that person, poof, disappears next year, that lifetime warranty is worth nothing. So, yeah, this one here was a customer. We get these calls a lot, especially after this situation. But actually, this one just happened this week, so it's kind of fresh in my head. And this customer was on the phone with Kay in the office, and I remember overhearing some of it. And she says, "I have a 10-year warranty, and I bought it 2 years ago, so everything should be covered. But the problem is the company that put it in disappeared." But he'd been around for a while. Obviously not long enough.
Right.
So, yeah, a 10-year warranty. I don't know if this competitor had thought that they were really going to be around for another 10 years. You never really know what people are thinking. But if somebody knew they were leaving and they were selling 10-year warranties and they planned on basically just bailing, that's fraud, in my opinion.
Right. No, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time with big companies. You get a warranty and then poof, the company goes out of business. That's a little different. They have to make business decisions, but this was like more intentional. If that's what he did, I'm not going to point fingers.
Right.
But anyway, he's there's no more warranty because the person that's offering the warranty is gone. So our organization, Advanced Water Systems, which we are I am the Richmond office of Advanced Water Systems. We were originally, a little history, we were based in Morehead City, North Carolina. Family started by Gene Smellick way back in 1987. And we have been going strong. We're going on almost 40 years, 3 years away from 40 years. That's a heck of a run.
Yeah.
And in that almost 4 decades, we have become the number one largest Connecticut dealer in the world. And we are still waiting to see how the dust settles on this last year, but we were staying in the number one position.
Oh yeah. And
of course, you never know what the other dealerships. It's always a nice friendly competition, but in the end, there's only number one time. So everybody loves being number one, and we want to maintain that. But we have over, I think, roughly 150 employees, and we have about a dozen locations. So if we're offering something in Richmond, which we do, and something happens. I like to use the terrible joke that if a tornado rolls through here and wipes out my office and everybody that works in it, that would be horrific. But the Chesapeake and the Raleigh offices would absolutely be able to send folks in to cover our customers and make sure that we can rebuild and live on. So I like to think that that's my immortality in a way.
My legacy will live on.
That's it, my legacy. So, but that is a big thing to consider on warranty claims, because we've been around for a long time. We got enough backfill to be able to go in and take care of whatever may come up, even if it's not in our office, because things have happened. There was major flooding down in eastern North Carolina several years back, and we sent everybody that could sent some folks down to help with some of that disaster recovery, because that's what we do. We're all part of one dealership. But anyway, that was the story about warranty. The cool story just happened to me yesterday, as a matter of fact. I call this one Angry Warfighters. It's going to be good.
That's a crazy title.
Yeah. So this goes back, oh my gosh, probably 8 months at this point. So we get this call back in the beginning part of 2023, and it was like a coffee shop, but they said, yeah, we're over in this at Fort Barfoot, and at first I was like, what the heck is Fort Barfoot? I've never heard of that before. It used to be Fort Pickett, for those folks that are familiar with that name instead.
Okay.
But it changed to Barfoot because of a World War II. He was a World War II hero, so they changed the name of the military base.
Nice.
It wasn't that people didn't like the old name as much as they really liked this Barfoot.
It was like an honorable thing.
It was an honorable thing,
Yeah.
exactly. But we get this call because they were doing some new construction there, and they were putting in a cafeteria on base, and they just wanted to get the water checked. So I was, of course, looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's 2 hours away, and I love this kind of stuff. So I got sent out there and got a chance to go through let's just say, it's a very rigorous exercise getting on a military base, between your background check and all the way down to the vehicle. It's one of those things, you better not have anything wrong with your vehicle, like an expired inspection or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because they won't even let you on the base if you're not 100% kosher. So once I got all the way out there, and then I found out that the GPS had routed me somewhere completely wrong. It took about an hour to actually get onto the base and where I needed to be, and then I met my contact at this particular facility, and it was pretty cool because it was called Fast C. Now, Fast C kind of sticks with you, and you're like, oh, that's kind of a neat name, and it was a weird little area, and when I say weird, I mean like a training area. It was very secure. They had all these things in place that like these poles that come up out of the ground to stop a vehicle if it's going to try to like run a bomb or something in. Yeah, they had all that stuff everywhere. It's pretty crazy. Maybe do a little bit of history on this Fast C. Well, the first thing, Fast C stands for the Foreign Affairs Security Training Center.
Okay.
So that's a fancy way of saying that all the embassies overseas, this is the place where they teach the folks that are protecting the embassies how to operate.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Wow.
it was, I remember my comment at the time was, I'm getting escorted. You can't just wander around. So
You can't wander around a military base?
no, I had military contractor badge on, and it was one of those that required permanent escort while I was on base. And this guy was telling me, what that stood for.
Right.
And I'm thinking there was something going on in the news at that point, and I said, I don't know whether to feel really safe or really scared, because I was thinking if this place is really, that high value target, like category, this may be like a target of some of these wackos that are, out there trying to do harm to America. Right. But I felt safe because there was so many people there that you absolutely would not want to mess with. Yeah. We'll just put it that way.
Yes.
These are the folks that are all across the world that are protecting all the embassies, which, right now especially, hats off to them. And I could guarantee you that most of them probably have been through this facility that I was at. But, yeah, I did a little bit of stats on them because I was curious. The facility, just the place that does the training, has roughly 500 instructors and staff. And they train 10,000 people a year, all in one place. And that's big because apparently before this Fast Sea Center got put up, they were actually taking these 10,000 people a year, and they had to go to 11 different sites across the United States. So talk about, your training takes, even if you're only in a place for a day, right, you've still got 11 days versus all that stuff is literally right there in one place.
Yeah.
And it's really pretty cool because it didn't look that big when I was there, but the guy was telling me, he's like, yeah, we got 19 miles of high-speed and off-road tracks. So they teach folks how to do, those maneuvers you see on the movies where the clover leaf, you're
defensive driving, yes, and things like that.
Defensive, offensive, defensive, all the tactics that they use. You see them in the movies, when the Suburbans are like bumper to bumper and they're just hauling. That's what they train for. So This was a pretty cool place. And so all these folks obviously eat and drink, and they wanted to do a cafeteria. So this cafeteria was under construction, and there's a lot of bureaucracy that goes along with like anything. But so they didn't really know if they needed anything, but they just wanted their water checked. So I get in there, I get a chance to meet the key people, and they bring me into the cafeteria, and they're like, they bring me over to the beverage center, which, the sodas, the Pepsis, the Cokes, they come out of the fountain, and they're like, yeah, this is one of the things you want to test the water here. And I kind of look behind the scenes, and I see the filtration that they have going in there. And it looked just like the exact setup that I would see at like a Starbucks or another cafe or coffee shop type thing.
Right.
Not, at least they're using something.
Right.
But I got a chance to say, well, basically they got a glorified fridge filter over here on this. But at the end of the day, you don't drink a soda because it's healthy. That's not your main goal.
True. True.
But this place was putting in a whole bunch of really nice espresso, a big, like, one of those custom coffee bar type places. Mm-hmm. And they said, really, what are your thoughts on this kind of stuff being in the back? And I didn't even, at that point, I really didn't even test the water that much, just being honest. I was like, look, there's a lot of things going around with contaminants in the water. There's PFAS. I know there's chlorine coming in because this is a municipal water supply. Really, there could be so many things that I can't even realistically test for them without sending them off to a specialty lab. I said, but I will tell you this, if this was my place and I really wanted the best of the best and no risk to any of the folks coming in here, I would go with a reverse osmosis system like we have at like the Capital Ones. And they kind of looked at me like, well, tell us more. What is that? And so I told them the story about how the coffee was, it makes a huge difference on the quality of the beverage, but most importantly, it makes sure that you've got flawless, perfect water every single time.
Right. So
we were going back and forth, and that really intrigued these folks. And, of course, they have to get multiple bids because it's a government contractor. Right. And I don't even think they got the other two bids that they were supposed to, not because they just loved me that much, which they did, But it was because it was such a difficult process. They couldn't find anybody else that would go back out there because they didn't tell them that they were looking for reverse osmosis. They just were using the same words like they did with us and said, hey, we just want somebody to check out our water. And most people in Richmond were like, no, we're not interested. So nobody else was able to really get involved in that thing. And I gave them the price on putting in a great system. And they called me up and like, absolutely, let's do this. So I'm like, oh, cool. This is exciting. It's our first military cafeteria. So we get all the stuff in, and I go and I install it all. And this is several months later. Actually, I think that was about that final install happened in end of November. So it took like a good 6 months, 7 months. So I hook all this stuff up. I fire it up. We commission it, and it's running. Everything is great. They're ready to go start doing their coffee thing. So and they're still not completely done building everything. They still had to hook up a lot of other things.
Right.
So eventually they get to their, the soft opening, which if you've ever seen any of those, basically what it is they want to get some practice with the new employees. They want to get in practice with the coffees that they've selected, and they want to make sure everything works, and they do that stress test to make sure it's good. And what ends up happening is they have these drip coffee, those big brewers.
Yeah.
Those were not hooked up to our equipment in the grand scheme of things. But they used our reverse osmosis water to actually do the brewed coffee during the soft start. So everything in there, with the exception of the beverage machines, which nobody cares about those, was getting this flawless, perfect water. And let's just say that they had a soft opening for, I think it was like a week. And then they were like, all right, everything is broken in. We're ready to go. So they went and they did their normal water in the coffee machine, the drip coffee. And they did our water in all the rest of the specialty drinks. And the guy was telling me, it was just yesterday, the day before, I lose track of what day it is now. But he was like, you would not believe how angry people were. They were coming up almost yelling, saying, there's something wrong with your coffee machine. And the guy was like, but it wasn't. It was the same coffee machine. It was the same coffee. It was the same people. It was the same measurements. The only difference was the water. Mm-hmm. And he said that to him was the most incredible, show of difference. He said, I had a whole bunch of angry warfighters in here about to tear this place down. And it was because the water went back to the normal water. So, yeah, that was the coolest. I thought that was actually one of the coolest stories ever, because even they didn't understand it, but now he truly understands it when you've got, hundreds of angry, very, very fired up war fighters, we call them, standing there demanding that they get the good water back.
Good water.
So, so the reason I was there yesterday, the day before, is I had to put another outlet in there so that they could get water to make, water for the coffees and smoothies and stuff, because they're like, there's no way we're going to get yelled at like that again. But that was the angry warfighter story. I thought that was pretty entertaining.
That was.
But that just got us right to the edge of this episode.
Oh yeah.
So tune in next time. Don't go away, but definitely check us out on the Connecticut Richmond site, or give us a call if there's anything you want to hear about in future episodes. We'd love to hear it. 877-609-2837 or 877-60-WATER, if that's easier to remember. And until next time, this is Paul and
Ethan
checking out Unfiltered, and we'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Connecticut Water Guy Hour. Join us next week for another edition with Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy. Opinions expressed on the program may not necessarily reflect the views of station management and ownership. Portions been recorded.